The 97th Annual Academy Awards are taking place during a challenging and polarizing time in Hollywood. This year, Jewish actors, actresses, screenwriters, songwriters, and beyond are among the nominees. But Jewish celebrities not immune to the anti-Semitism sweeping the nation in the wake of October 7th. We are now joined from New York City here to discuss more. And we are here with Jeffrey Lyons, a longtime colleague back in the day, film critic, author, and the host and creator of the Lyons Den. Hello, my friend. Good to see you.
I want to apologize to anybody who sat near us all those years when we were chatting during a boring movie. So.
I know, it's true. We did do that quite a bit. So let's talk about the nominees. We got Adrien Brody back, a lot of promise as far as films. Do you think that there is a good chance of coming away with some Academy Awards?
I think Timothée Chalamet is going to win it because his performance was absolutely remarkable. And Adrien Brody already has an Oscar, and that still is part of the consideration. The dynamic and the voting block has changed. It's gotten younger and more diverse. But I think Timothée Chalamet's performance is a performance of the ages. I didn't really care much for The Brutalist.
Right.
But that's what, you know.
That's what we got.
I think of his performance, Timothée Chalamet. I was not a big fan of his up to now, but boy, it jumped off the screen. It really did. It's his voice, not Bob Dylan, which is also remarkable.
It's amazing how some of these actors could really, take singing lessons and make it seem like they've been singing their whole lives. That is for sure. What's your take also with what's going on? We're seeing, of course, post October 7th, a lot of polarization throughout the country. But now we are getting, with the return of the bodies of the Bibas family, the two young boys, and Sherry. Then we got artists for a ceasefire letter asking attendees to wear a red pin in support of Gaza. And then you have, of course, pushback from the brigade. So what do you make of these very, very robust anti-Israel messages with something that is supposed to be celebrating entertainment?
They have no shame, these people who are protesting, these pro-Palestinians. Because don't forget, the Palestinians elected Hamas to run Gaza. So they should have realized this was going to happen to them. They just have no shame at all. They started the war.
Yeah, well, also given the legacy, the longtime legacy of the entertainment industry, and the immigrants, the Jewish immigrants who created the studios and whatnot, I think there also seems to be a lot of amnesia in a way. Share more about that and the strong history of the Jewish people in creating the entertainment business.
I want to give you some anecdotes because let's get a little bit lighter here if we can. These are funny anecdotes about Jewish stars. Remember Alan King, the great comedian?
Yep. Alan
King was in a movie, and there was a command performance in London. He was, of course, told by the Queen, you don't speak to her until she speaks to you first. Sure enough, she shook his hand and said, "Nice to meet you, Mr. King." He said, "Likewise, Mrs. Queen." And Harpo Marx was a friend of my family. My dad wrote a Broadway column, so I grew up knowing all these people. Harpo Marx and George Burns were driving once from Palm Springs to Beverly Hills. And Harpo was driving, and Burns said about an hour later, nothing looked familiar. He said, "I think we're lost." And Harpo said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Look outside, it's snowing." George Burns was one of my. We need a little bit of lightheartedness.
Of course we do. Yes. Well, that's why. These are the legends that I'm referring to. It wasn't. No one was looking at what religion you are. They were just wanting to be entertained, for crying out loud.
Well, when I had my first dinner with my future in-laws 53 years ago, they thought Passover was a game show. But anyway, George Burns' real name was Nathan Birnbaum. And for a year, he tried to get into show business with that name. Then he took a cab one day, and the cab driver was named Willie Delight, and he was a failed vaudevillian, and he had 900 of the 1,000 cards that he couldn't get rid of because his career was going nowhere. So he gave them to George Burns, and for a year, George Burns changed his name to Willie Delight. Billy Wilder came to America from Alsace-Lorraine, one of the great directors of all time, but he couldn't get a job for a year. His mother back in the old country was worried, and he sent her copies of books by Thornton Wilder, saying that he had temporarily changed his first name and was working fine, nothing happened, he was doing well. Well, he finally got a job in Hollywood, and he wrote her a note saying, confessing it to her, and she wrote back saying, "I'm so glad, I didn't like any of those books anyway."
Oh, wow.
And I looked up all the great directors, even more than movie stars, who are of the Hebraic persuasion, from Sidney Pollack to Gregory Ratoff, who was a wonderful actor, also owned the rights to the original Casino Royale, to Mike Nichols, Hector Babenco, the Brazilian, Nora Ephron, of course, Woody Allen and Sidney Lumet, Samuel Goldwyn, Judd Apatow, J.J. Abrams, Jon Favreau, Gene Wilder, Amy Heckerling. It's all in the history of Hollywood. All the studios were founded by members of the Jewish persuasion. And my former partner, Neil Gabler, wrote a book about it, how the Jews helped found Hollywood. And we need to speak out more forcefully, even now, from this side, from the United States, against what's happening. We have somebody who's advising the president who has made some anti-Semitic statements, and we have to crush that. We have to fight back louder than we're doing.
Yeah, well, listen, I think the contributions, it does seem, though, a lot of the films are kind of, especially this year, have some kind of Holocaust-related theme. Are you confident that we could have a future of more Jewish-themed films that are not focusing just on genocide?
I hope so. Yentl did that. I went to a Backers audition 30 years ago with my father, more than 40 years ago, and my cousin was a lyricist, and he played some of the songs for a proposed musical, and they sounded like the schmaltziest stuff. We thought it would play 2 weeks in second. Here's one song. If I was a rich man, Yabba Sheldon. It'll play 2 weeks on 2nd Avenue. Emily, my station would have been owned by me if we had invested in Fiddler on the Roof. Also, when I was a kid, I went with my father on junkets overseas. I remember we were having dinner with Princess Grace in Monaco. It was part of a junket. My father had known her from the old days in New York. And we went to Rome for the Agony and the Ecstasy. And we went to Spain, where Sophia Loren cooked me a spaghetti dinner, but that's another story. But now junkets, they have those. I'm glad I don't have to do those anymore. What with streaming, I can work from my home and record my radio show. I don't have to go to screenings anymore. I see everything online, and it's a relief.
Wow. All right, Jeffrey Lyons, thank you, and it's so good to see you.
Let's do this again soon.
You got it.